the classic tale, the musical. The family is going to love that. And now, Dee and I went to the opening of The Prince of Egypt. I have to tell you, I've never seen that before, and it is spectacular. I want you to imagine a chariot race between the two brothers, Ramses and Moses, that happen while in the air above you at Hale Center Theater. That's just one of the highlights. And I have to tell you, while every performer is magnificent in the play, the Pharaoh, when the Pharaoh is on stage, he commands the theater. And how in the world do you present all of the plagues and miracles? Hale Center Theater does it beautifully. This is the time, too, to get your season tickets, especially if you want to see Frozen. All you have to do is go to hct.org.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
The murder of two men forces their families to wrestle with impossible questions. Who is forgiveness for? Does everyone deserve a second chance? Follow Season 2 of The Letter, Ripple Effect, at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Here's Ricky Meese.
Heads up, Davis County drivers. We have a crash with possible injuries blocking traffic. This is at the intersection of Park Lane and Highway 89 in Farmington. Also, westbound right lanes blocked traffic. It's a spot you want to consider avoiding and using an alternate route until they can get it cleared out of the way. Put your energy into the fight song, not fighting for parking. You win when you take UTA to the game. Plan your trip at rideuta.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The sunshine continues for a couple more days. Highs expected to hit 52 today and keep rising from there. By Sunday, we're expecting a high of 62. Then a storm rolls in Monday, bringing rain and snow. Right now, it's sunny and 45 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Fights over the future of foreign aid and USAID continue today, following a late-night order from Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts blocking a lower court's order that the Trump administration pay roughly $2 billion in foreign assistance funds. The deadline for that payment was last night. Welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. Greg, good to be with you. It's been a while since we've been together.
I know. It's good to be with you, too. I'm looking over the format today, Rusty. I get the feeling we're going to disagree on a couple things.
We might.
Yeah.
We just might.
We'll see how that goes.
Which I think is the idea. So let's get right into it. We're going to discuss the latest on this fight over USAID, also known as USAID, and the future of foreign aid. We're going to begin with some updates from ABC News.
Despite a federal judge ordering them to resume paying foreign aid, the Trump administration acknowledged this week that they still withheld nearly $2 billion from nonprofit groups. In exclusive audio obtained by ABC News, Peter Morocco, a top USAID and State Department official, can be heard boasting earlier this month about stopping the payments.
And so we were able to seize control of that, stop them, take control of some of those people, and make sure that that money was not getting out the door.
Late yesterday, the Supreme Court delayed the deadline for the Trump administration to pay those nonprofits more than $1.9 billion, requesting further briefing on the issue by Friday. Peter Charalambous, ABC News.
So what happened, Rusty, is this, that the Trump administration issued an executive order holding this aid and saying we're going to withhold $2 billion of aid to nonprofit groups. A lawsuit was filed, and a judge, a judge in U.S. District Judge Amir Ali, said, no, we're flipping that over. The administration is wrong, and he posed a deadline of 11:59 p.m. last night for the government to pay $2 billion in aid. Of course, the administration took that to the Supreme Court, and Chief Justice Roberts issued a stay of that ruling. In other words, the administrative order by the administration is still in place until it's heard, but that order that the judge said, no, you got to pay the money by midnight last night was withheld.
Yeah, so apparently he issued this around 9:30 p.m. last night. I did look at the filing. You should be proud of me. Now I'm looking at filings.
There you go. Legal filings, yep.
Yes. Issued at 9:30. It was one page and very short. He doesn't explain, and maybe you can explain to listeners, this is normal, right? Or I would assume from a Chief Justice.
Right, because he's not going to issue his ruling behind it. There isn't an opinion to be held. He's just saying, no, we're not going to have this go into effect. See you later.
Yeah, and then he ordered that the aid groups that filed the lawsuits respond to the government's application by noon Friday. So that's noon tomorrow. So I guess some people are clicking some billable hours today and getting stuff ready to go.
Yeah, so he's put the ruling on hold, but he's given the groups that are requesting this money some time to weigh in on his decision. So it's a temporary hold. I think we're getting used to the phrase injunction anymore.
Yeah.
We use that so much with
like every day,
Utah courts. Yeah, the
injunction,
court's enjoining something, and that's exactly what happened here. The district judge lower said, no, Trump, you're wrong. The Supreme Court said, time out. Let's have some more briefing on the issue.
So you're going to be even more proud of me. I looked at another legal filing. This was the filing that Pete, I just forgot his last name, who's the person at USAID that Trump has appointed. He responded with a pretty detailed 34-page filing where he explains to the lower judge, I guess, that here's what we've been doing. And it was interesting. He went through and said, here's the step-by-step process of what we've been doing to see if these grants should go through. And this was an interesting point I found on there that I thought made sense. He went through and said, listen, it essentially comes from department by department up to a few people, then to me, and then everything has gone to the Secretary of State. So Rubio has the final say whether to continue it or let it go. Then if they're going to let it still be paid, he said, in doing so, they will require only the same basic materials any rational counterparty would normally require. An invoice that documents verifiable work that the government actually committed to fund in its contract, grant, or other instrument, payments entries that actually match the invoices and receipts, vouchers, or other supporting information that explains the purpose and amount of funds sought. For payments that meet these basic prerequisites, state and USAID are committed to payment of money owed under the relevant instrument.
Yeah,
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, Peter Marocco, the Trump appointee to lead USAID, and of course the Trump administration has said exactly what you just did, Rusty, that the administration is prepared to pay bills for work that's already been completed. So what we're talking about is timeout. Don't do any more work for foreign aid, but the work that's done that we've committed to already will be paid. And I think the administration, as a part of everything they're doing right now, Rusty, is taking a look and saying, should the United States be involved in these type of programs, foreign and domestic, and saying, time out, let's put the brakes on foreign aid for now. Although, I mean, the problem is you've had this ongoing for years and years and years. People are expecting it. The contractors are expecting it. Other countries are expecting it. So for the administration to say no more, and maybe they just don't have a choice. If they're really going to cut back, maybe you just say, let's cut back instead of go through the process, which could take months or maybe years.
Well, apparently this 90% adds up to somewhere around $60 billion, if I read.
Right,
yeah,
$60 billion.
That's a lot of money. And as I think, you know, the administration has talked about the mandate that they claim they have about reducing government spending. And we'll talk about a poll much later in the show. It'd be interesting to see kind of how these types of things are landing with the American people, if they're popular or not. But I would assume, and I'm curious if you disagree, that I think there's broad support over just the general idea of, hey, let's tone things down. Let's make sure everything is, you know, up to snuff, that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse and all. And I do understand why there's a lot of irritation for those that were likely very much depending on that money and now saying, hold on a second. According to the memo, they're saying, hey, listen, if you've done the work and you can have present your receipts, you'll get paid. But I can see why there's some irritation over this.
Yeah, and you know, Trump is, in terms of his own professional life and his political life, largely transactional. So when he's looking at $60 billion in foreign aid, he's also saying, what's in it for us? Why are we doing this? Is there some quid pro quo? I mean, is there some national security that's being helped? Or is there some, as we'll talk about later with Ukraine, some minerals or things like that we're getting in exchange for our aid? But I think he's really taking a look at this. And I think the American public is kind of like, well, why is the United States just bailing everybody out?
Yeah.
And what are we getting in return? Not that that's necessarily, Rusty, the end game. But when you're talking about something like $60 billion, you do expect there's got to be something in it for the American people.
Yeah, so in all, the Trump administration has said it's going to eliminate roughly 5,800 of 6,200 multi-year USAID contract awards for a cut of $54 billion. That's roughly that $60 billion we were talking about. And a lot of money that they're going to trim. I could see why people would be upset. I think the issue where they could have blowback is if when you're taking a hammer to something, when you maybe could have used a scalpel in some areas, that you accidentally or inadvertently defund or unfund something that is likely popular or vital, right? Saving lives, doing good, those kinds of things. However, I think you could also make a case where, okay, if we're giving, I'm making up a number, $100 million, but $10 million will solve the problem still, that's reasonable as well.
Right. Why not do it? And speaking of hammer versus scalpel, I think Trump's first term was a scalpel presidency, and he realized he didn't get what he needed done. And he's come right out of the chute, not with a hammer, with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And he's got Democrats on their heels. They don't know what to contest. He's got Congress basically saying, hey, the American public put you in office, do what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And the courts are sort of mixed here in terms of, hey, what can we do? And is this something that the court should even be weighing in on? So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, his whole promises made, promises kept thing. We're going to cut back on foreign aid. We're going to cut back on spending money. We're going to cut back on government fat, which, by the way, the American public, I think, put him in office to do. I mean, we're going to talk later about his poll numbers, but people are generally thinking, hey, that's what we voted you in to do. Do it. But boy, is he coming out of the chute huge. And, we've only got a little bit of time left, but maybe I'm naive, but I'd never heard of USAID before. And now it's like one of our biggest agencies is being cut back by, but with a, like you say, a sledgehammer.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a good point. I think that's what I'm welcoming.
Yeah,
personally, is the sunshine. How many things we talked about the other day on the show, I think when I was here with Taylor Morgan, about the mine where all the government retirement paperwork goes to. It literally goes in a mine where they move paper boxes around to process your paperwork. It takes months. We never knew about that, or some people didn't know about USAID until now. Well, now we know. We're learning a lot. All right, next on Inside Sources, President Trump wants to help reduce the U.S. deficit by selling a new type of green card, nicknaming it a gold card, to rich foreigners who wish to come to America. We'll talk about that after the break.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done, or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Jackson Hewitt wants you to save money on tax prep. We're saving money by having our intern rap in this commercial.
Don't stress, Jackson Hewitt's got expert tax prep, $149 or less. Yo, some tax guys lie about price. What? They got hidden fees, that ain't nice. Ain't nice. Don't ignore MC Kevin's rhyme, because this deal's for a limited time. $149.
For tax prep that's $149 or less, hurry into Jackson Hewitt today.
No cap.
Limited time offer for new clients on federal returns. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com/149.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to the A to Z savings event at AutoZone.
Yeah, happy to be here. Can I get some rotors?
Would you like brake pads with that?
How much are the brake pads?
free with the rotors.
Free. Really?
Really, free.
Okay, I also need some oil.
Would you like an oil filter with that?
Yeah, how much is that?
Free with 5 quarts of oil.
Free? Really?
Really, free. It's part of the A to Z savings event.
You might as well call it A to free.
At AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Over 3/4 of Americans will experience foot pain, and most will just live with that pain every day. But Foot Solutions in Orem is here to change that. Here's Amanda from Provo.
I am an active woman, ex-Division I basketball player at BYU. By trade, I'm a PE teacher. Over the last 2 years is when my feet really started hurting.
And that's when Amanda's life changed with a visit to Foot Solutions in Orem.
My experience at Foot Solutions was so unique to any other experience I've had. Over an hour they spent with me, really going over my specific pain points.
After discovering so many solutions and custom in-house made orthotics, what does Amanda want you to know?
Invest in your health. Don't be cheap to your feet. Living a pain-free, active life again has been worth every cent.
Just search for Foot Solutions in Orem and find out more at footsolutions.com.
I'm Amanda from Provo. I'm 47 years old, and Foot Solutions has given me back a pain-free, active lifestyle.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Breaking news. We've just learned that the 12-year-old child that was hit by a car in front of Kearns Junior High has died from his injuries. Unified Police say the kid was crossing through a crosswalk on their bike when they were hit. They were taken to the hospital in critical condition, but they have, once again, died from their injuries. The driver stayed on the scene and is cooperating with the investigation. Back to you guys.
Jeff Kaplan. When you're online, that's sometimes a source of fourth-hand information. Somebody does the reporting. Another website Googles, they find it, they rewrite it, and by the time you read it, you know the old game telephone. But KSL is a source of primary information. We have reporters on the street. They're out in the field finding out the details. And the difference between online and KSL News Radio, night and day.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Forget the green cards, Rusty. There's a new immigration card in town, and it's called the Gold Card. It's one of President Trump's proposals to bring in wealthier immigrants while also bringing down the national deficit. This is a really interesting program. What he's talking about here is he's considering offering wealthy foreigners what he calls a gold card, which would serve as a $5 million pathway to U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, when I first heard this, I did cringe a little bit. I thought, oh boy, when you hear the word gold, come out of his mouth, I worried, okay, what road are we going down? However, I'm sure you can fill in listeners, this program has existed. And
it's existed in kind of a different way. Before we get to that, let's hear what Donald Trump had to say about it this morning.
We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship.
And what he said was it's going to replace the EB-5 program, which is what you talked about, that we'll talk about in just a minute. And here's what he said about that.
And wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people.
So what this program has been in the past, and the assumption is that he is talking about replacing what is called the EB-5, Immigrant Investor Program. That has been in place for quite some time. It allows for an $800,000 investment, according to news reports, and documentation, I guess, of intention to create at least 10 jobs. And I wondered, Greg, how much has this been used? So according to data, this has been used. In 2021, just under 3,000 of these visas were issued. This number increased a bunch in 2024 with over 10,800 EB-5 visas issued through the normal processes. And so this has actually been used. When I first heard about it, I scratched my head. I thought, what is he talking about? But what do you think of the idea? I mean, this obviously a higher price of $5 million. According to news reports, the idea could be to pay down debt of the United States. Amen to that. But what do you think?
Well, it looks like it still has another hook, and that is that you have to be. I'm sure there's some vetting process. You can't be a foreign terrorist, or you know what I mean, or be on capital, death row in your country. But and I'm being facetious here a little bit, but it looks like you have to pass the other hurdles that are required for citizenship. But $5 million certainly puts you on a fast track to citizenship. It's unfortunately calls it the gold card, because I think EB-5 immigration investor visa sounds a little less like
cheesy.
You're buying your way in. $800,000 investment. So what that was intended to do was bring investors in, like you said, that are willing to set up a program with employees and a business. $800,000, it moves you fast to U.S. citizenship. This seems to be just a straight buy-in. $5 million.
Yes, I think it can be viewed that way. One other way to look at it is, harkening back to my taxpayer days, if you're trying to increase economic activity, and he mentions these folks paying a lot of taxes, he's right. If they're in that type of tax bracket to pay $5 million, they will be paying quite a bit of tax on the income that you would assume they'd be earning or producing. But as you attract that kind of economic activity, that only helps. Those that pay a lot of tax, those that create jobs, that is a very good economic engine. Now, you need everybody along the economic spectrum as well, but having a program to incentivize those types of, whether you want to call them investors or citizens or those that would be hopefully producing jobs and paying taxes, those kinds of things, I think it's a viable idea. I'm not sold on the marketing of it. When you call it the gold card, it just rubs me the wrong way. It just kind of goes down that cheesy lane. But as you mentioned, the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program, I didn't know it existed until now. Here's another thing. We just talked about that in the previous segment of things we're learning. This administration. Here's another. I didn't even know this program existed.
And EB-5.
Yeah.
And it's consistent with what we talked about before, though, which is, stir up the economy, bring our national debt down, bring expenses down that the country's spending, and bring in more money, more resources from other sources, including people that may want to get a fast track to citizenship. $5 million. It's a little inconsistent with our whole bring in your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. We're the home for the wretched refuse, but we're also a fast track home to the rich people.
But if you're bringing your wealthy,
if you're bringing $5 million to the table, we'll give you a gold card.
It was interesting to hear. There was quoted in an article on this subject. This is according to the article, a former United Kingdom multimillionaire. He told, quote, "Paying $5 million for a golden visa and getting taxed on your global income defeats the purpose," unquote.
Yeah.
Meaning, so he's getting into tax policy weeds. But if you come to the U.S., you are, and you're quite wealthy, you are taxed quite a bit heavier than you would be in some of these other countries that are known as tax havens. So his point is that, why would I do that? Why would I pay $5 million to come and pay more taxes? So he was thinking maybe it wouldn't get used. But according to data, I think he's wrong. Over 10,800 of these visas were issued just in 2024, and under a lower dollar limit. But I just found that interesting.
Yeah, that makes you think that internationally people still think that the American dream is there, and that the American economy is something you want to invest in, and American citizenship is worth something. I mean, is it worth $5 billion? Maybe to some people it is. And does it help the national debt? Obviously it would. I'm mixed on this, Rusty. I really am. When I first read it, I thought this is obscene.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so inappropriate. But man, $5 million, we get 10,000 people to do that. What's that?
It starts to add up.
That's a lot of money.
My math is failing me, but it's a lot of money.
I'm sorry I even mentioned that, because my math bailed as soon as I said it. But we're talking about, I mean, even if there's just 1,000 people or 10,000 people over the next couple of years. And by the way, this is just a program that he's talked about, that he's introducing. It's something that he wants to do. He signed an executive order sort of floating out the idea. Whether it's going to go far, we don't know. But this has to be something also, Rusty, that's been in the can for a while. Because Trump's come out of the chute. What's he been president for, like 5-6 weeks now?
Barely, yeah.
And he's doing so much that this wasn't something that he just thought of yesterday. This might have been something that he and his people have been going, maybe not this high a priority as a lot of his other executive orders, but something to stir up the economy.
Yeah, certainly. The EB-5 program, as we mentioned, it actually is administered by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Department. It was created by Congress in 1990. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
Congress is going to actually pull this off. He can't do it himself. To, quote, stimulate the U.S. economy through job creation and capital investment by foreign investors. All right, they're making the point that I made earlier. Now, according to some, they're thinking this could be a negotiation tactic to increase the amount of U.S.-bound investment, just kind of that ongoing battle with foreign countries, whether it's tariffs, capital flows, and all of that. I can see his point. If I was... If he were listening to me, which obviously he is not, I would have rolled it out differently of saying, hey, we are going to make the EB-5 program even better.
Right.
Versus talking about,
EB 5.1.
There's this new gold Visa card that we're going to issue.
Well, that's how he thinks, though.
That's how he thinks. I just thought, okay, you're not opening a casino. This is revamping a program that I think you could say should be a lot better.
So Congress, with the power of the purse, how do they look at this? Is this something that will be along party lines, or do you think Democrats will think it's a good idea, or do you think some Republicans will think this is a terrible idea? I mean, if this was floated before Congress, I'm asking you to surmise. We've only been talking about this and only been learning about it for the last couple of hours, but where do you think Congress will come out on this?
Well, I'm trying to remember who was in control in 1990. I believe Democrats still had control of the House. This might have been a bipartisan issue back then.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to look at that. Maybe we'll have to do that. But that was George W. Bush, and then you had a Democrat-controlled House. This could be a bipartisan issue. Now, having said that, given the vitriol pointed at Donald Trump from Democrats, I don't see them ever voting for virtually anything.
Anything he suggests?
He could say the sky is blue, and they would say, no, you're wrong. It's just, but I don't know, maybe I'm being too facetious. I don't see them supporting it just because of who it's coming from. But it apparently, according to when it was 1990, had to have been a somewhat bipartisan issue. However, that was a different time.
Right.
I mean, I was still in high school, but I do remember the country was different. I think bipartisanship existed then, much more than it does now.
My guess is the American public, especially those that supported Trump, who, by the way, won a majority of the votes, is probably going to be in favor of something like this because it goes to the whole immigration thing. It goes to the whole who's coming into our country. And maybe people that have $5 million, according to Trump, should be coming into our country because they're going to, as he says, they're going to create jobs, they're going to pay taxes. This is going to be these are the kind of people that we want living in our country. Maybe nobody signs up for it. I think you're right, though.
It's apparently been used. Yeah,
we'll see. When we come back after the break, let's go up to Utah's Capitol Hill and discuss a few bills, including more on the judiciary. I think you and I are going to have to talk about this one.
Oh, yes,
and something about political candidate communications. Stay with us.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shilaos. KSL's top story this hour. A 12-year-old child has died after they were hit on their bike in a crosswalk near Kearns Junior High. Unified Police Sergeant Amy Ray says the accident happened at around 7:45 this morning.
Right here off 4140 West and Sam's Boulevard, there was a juvenile that was crossing the crosswalk, and as they were in the crosswalk on their bicycle, a Chevy Tahoe came through that crosswalk and collided with the juvenile.
She says the Tahoe's driver is cooperating with the investigation. Salt Lake City fire crews had to put out a fire yesterday that was caused by an e-bike. Salt Lake City Fire Captain Brant Handcuff says that these kinds of fires don't happen here every day, but they are becoming more common here and around the country.
As soon as they ignite, it just releases heat and rapid fire growth. That's very dangerous for everybody involved.
He says these fires typically break out when people aren't properly charging them or overcharging them or using a knockoff charger. He says he expects to see more of these fires in the future. New York City has actually outlawed charging e-bikes inside apartment buildings because of these problems. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Pope's health continues to improve. The Vatican says his health crisis is lessening and he seems to be able to do more things. He dedicated the morning to respiratory physiotherapy, testing lung function as he recovers from double pneumonia. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow is now down by 136 points, sitting at 43,297. S&P down by 72 points. The NASDAQ, though, it's down by more than a full 2%, down 417 points. A warm weekend ahead. We'll check the forecast next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Will you get your fair share of benefits from Social Security? You know, the new Social Security Fairness Act could impact thousands of Utah families. For personal guidance on how it could impact your Social Security filing decision, get a free Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $200,000 and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. Filing for Social Security could be one of the biggest financial decisions of your life because the difference between your best and worst case scenarios could literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars. You only get one chance to get this right. So get your free customized analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622. Boss Retirement Solutions is not affiliated with the Social Security Administration.
Sherry, what have you done to your hair?
What do you mean? Does it not look good?
It doesn't look good. It looks freaking amazing. I can't believe how thick and healthy it looks. Oh, I must know your secret.
No secret. It's hair volume from New Nordic.
Hair volume, huh? Well, it certainly lives up to its name. Your hair has never looked so thick. It is gorgeous.
I was so tired of having thin and brittle hair. Ugh, and the shedding. So I figured I'd give hair volume a try. Needless to say, I'm thrilled with the results. Hey, where are you going?
I'm going to pick up some hair volume right now. My reunion's next month, and I want my hair to look as good as yours.
Hair Volume is the best-selling hair tablet in the world and one of many award-winning natural health products from New Nordic, the #1 supplier of dietary supplements in Scandinavia. Purchase at newnordicusa.com or your local CVS. Available as a tablet or delicious gummy. Help your hair look full, voluminous, and beautiful again at newnordicusa.com or CVS.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. What's happening on the roads, Ricky?
We have the final cleanup of the Farmington accident at Park Lane and Highway 89. It is in the westbound left lanes of travel, so you can still get by, but just use some caution. Valley Freeway traffic still seeing good speeds. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunshine and a high of 52 today, 55 tomorrow, and 57 on Saturday. The next chance of rain or snow shower shows up on Monday and Tuesday. Right now, 46 degrees downtown. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. One controversial topic in the 2025 Legislative General Session has been the judicial branch. There's been a wide range of bills, including one that would allow a legislative committee to offer recommendations on judicial retention. Those recommendations would then be published in your ballot. We want to talk about that bill, but also the relationship between the judiciary and the legislature in general. And Greg, this is something I wanted to talk to you about. I had mentioned an article that was in the Tribune a few days ago, and a quote that really irritated me from a justice on the Utah Supreme Court. She said, according to the article, quote, "My preference is to kill this silly bill. There's absolutely no reason for you to be meddling in how we pick the Chief Justice. You can, but it's not broken. It's working well, so don't do it." And that was Judge Peterson on the Utah Supreme Court. And so that got me thinking, I wanted to talk about this with you, Greg, and your legal expertise and kind of how all this works and what your opinion is. In addition to that, right before we started this segment, or at least it came out sometime today. A letter was published, signed by Chief Justice Durant from the Utah Supreme Court on behalf of the Judicial Council on the issue we're talking about, and we'll get into that. So, Greg, actually, let's start with a soundbite. This is State Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby. She spoke in committee about some of the things, the bill we're talking about in particular, and a couple of others, HB 512, does and does not do. Let's listen to what she said.
The bill does not change the term of office for any judge. It does not empower the legislature to retain or not retain a judge up for retention election, and it doesn't increase or decrease the governor's appointment power. It is simply more information to the voter, and it is about time that voters have the information they need to vote in judicial retention elections.
So that's something that comes up a lot, Rusty, and that is every time we have an election, at the bottom of the ballot, it seems like there's what we call the judicial retention election.
Yeah.
And currently there's a group in place. It's called JPEC, the Judicial Performance Evaluation Committee, which is sort of a nonpartisan group made up it's sort of people from the judiciary, from other branches. It's a sort of a mixed group, and they'll do a survey of people that are in the courts, people that lawyers, jurors, people that are just seeing the court in process and say, what did you think of Judge so-and-so? Mm-hmm. And then they'll do an evaluation. And I think the problem has been that the judges just get re-elected because we don't have we call it a retention election, which is should Judge so-and-so stay or go.
Yeah.
And it's rare in my 43 years of practice that a judge gets the no vote. I can only think of a couple. I can think of two right off the top of my head. There may be more, but those judges had been involved in some issues that at the time I think a lot of people were concerned about, and so they weren't retained. But JPEC, which has not been around for 43 years, but has been doing these evaluations, has been doing a fairly good job, and I think people are happy with the job they do. There's actually a group that studies judicial performance elections, and they've said that this is John Singer, a professor of New England School of Law in Boston, who has studied judicial performance evaluations for 20 years, saying there's none finer than what the committee is doing right now in Utah. So if it's not broke, why fix it? The legislature is saying, maybe it's a little too easy path to retention. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should have a little more scrutiny in that. And so they're taking a look at this and other things that we'll talk about and saying, let's create a new council to look at judicial performance and can make recommendations yay or nay, because right now we get almost uniformly yay votes on these judges.
Yeah.
To me, I guess practicing as I do and seeing judges, I think that the current system does work fairly well. But I do understand the voters thinking, why are we even doing this? Because it's just a formality. And the judges are getting something like 85, 80, 90% retention. And some people just vote no on everything. But other than that, people are looking at retaining judges, which in my limited experience has so far been a pretty good plan.
Yeah, so let me ask you, am I justified in being irritated with Justice Peterson? As far as making comments like that, I could take it as far as if I were a member of the legislature, worrying about when the legislature has a case before the Utah Supreme Court, if you're getting a fair shake, when those are the kinds of things that are being said from a judge, where I think you could question the impartiality of, wait a minute, if they're this ginned up about the legislature, are they being fair when it comes to the legislature? Or am I overthinking this? Am I being too sensitive?
No, you're not. I understand that. I mean, I think when we hear judges speak out on any issue, it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Just be glad we're not in a state where we have contested judicial elections, where you have judges competing for office, where they're doing commercials and billboards. I mean, thank goodness we don't do that in Utah, really. I mean, that would just be awful. But it still makes a lot of people a little uncomfortable when a judge, or in this case, one of the justices, says this bill's dumb, in part because the Supreme Court may very well weigh in on the constitutionality of this bill someday.
So would she have to recuse herself because of the comment, or is that just not the way it works?
I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, maybe she'll do it anyway. But the Chief Justice is actually the one that wrote the letter that we started this whole thing out, and he writes a letter today. I mean, it's hot off the press. He's writing a letter on behalf of the Judicial Council expressing concerns about HB 512, and he writes it to President Adams and Speaker Schultz, saying this undermines the independence of the judiciary, and it gives the legislature a little bit more pull and say in who our judges are and and not, I guess not so much who they are, because we still have the Senate approval, but if they don't like a specific judge for a ruling he or she makes, the legislature then come in and say, I guess the fear is, I don't know that this is what happened in practice, we don't think this judge should be kept in office.
Yeah, so Justice Durant said this in the letter. The Judicial Council understands that some policy decisions, though they impact the judiciary, fall within the authority of the legislature. And what they are saying in this letter is not suggesting otherwise. But then he goes on to push the other direction and just saying we think this is bad. And I don't know if we want to essentially read the letter here. There's quite a bit in it. But he talks about a loss of trust is particularly damaging to the judiciary. Possessing neither the sword nor the purse, the judiciary can fulfill its constitutional role only when the public trusts its impartiality and commitment to the rule of law. Right on that note, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
This is my personal opinion. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this. I wouldn't trust the impartiality of that judge after what she said.
Yeah, and I can understand that. On the other hand, judges don't have a voice. I mean, it's so difficult when like what is.
But isn't that not what they're signing up for when they become a judge?
You're right. And they're appointed for life.
Yeah.
And it's just a retention. Are they doing a good job or not? But boy, when people come out after a judge, they don't have much of a defense, and I've felt badly for some of the judges that weren't retained, because I think at least in one case it was unfair, but that judge couldn't do anything about it. Now, I'm not saying that's happening here. There's another bill we haven't talked about at all yet, but that's the bill that provides that rather than having the Supreme Court justices pick from among themselves, the 5 of them, who's going to be the presiding judge, that will be by the governor. I think that's Senate Bill 296, sponsored by Senator Chris Wilson of Logan.
Mm-hmm.
So the governor would appoint the Chief Justice every 4 years with the confirmation of the Senate. Right now, the judges just sit.
They elect it themselves, right?
And
sort of a class election.
The same would occur with the Court of Appeals, which has 7 judges. They pick who's going to be the chief judge for any given term, and this bill would provide that the governor would do that. I guess I'm a little less offended by that one, because I don't know that would make a big difference. Although it's another one of those "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" kind of argument that I would make in terms of being opposed to the bill generally.
Yeah. I guess my underlying question is, can you separate politics out of everything? Meaning, these are humans, these justices or judges, and they certainly have opinions. But I think they sign up for something different, especially as somewhere like on the Supreme Court. And I don't know. It's a question I still have unresolved in my mind. Is I just don't believe that those biases just don't come through at times, and I wonder about it. And maybe this was a usual thing for a judge to say publicly, and I just hadn't heard it recently, and so it's fresh and new. But it bothered me.
Yeah. I'll just say one thing in closing here, and that is this: we haven't had a Republican governor in this state or a Democratic governor in this state for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So virtually every judge and justice in this state was appointed by a Republican governor and confirmed by a Republican Senate. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the political leanings one way or the other, it's not like these are, that there's a partisan contention here as much as you might think.
Maybe the Utah Senate needs to dial up their intense scrutiny in these confirmation hearings. We'll see. All right, next on Inside Sources, we're going to discuss legislation that would add limits to the kinds of communications elected officials can send out before an election, especially when those elected officials are running for re-election. We'll be right back.
Someone asked me the other day, do you know how many devices the average home has connected to their Wi-Fi network? It's way more than I thought. I actually went home and counted my connected devices, more than a dozen, all to keep me connected to the good stuff, streaming, my gaming, interneting, you name it. Xfinity knows the number of connected devices you have is growing by the year. That's why they engineered their gateways to handle hundreds of connected devices. Hundreds, for real. Now through March 18th, get Xfinity Gig Internet for $25 a month for 1 year with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add an unlimited mobile line, and ask how to get an eligible free 5G phone with trade-in. Make sure your home Wi-Fi can handle everything you throw at it and then some. Visit Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store to switch today. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account, taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Xfinity Internet required. Reduced mobile speeds after use of monthly data included with your data option. Data thresholds and actual internet speeds vary.
Sign up for KSL Text Alerts. Get breaking news and traffic updates by texting the word news to 57500. Want access to exclusive contests? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking jazz updates. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply.
Is that a new Samsung Galaxy A15 5G?
Yeah, I got it for free when I joined Cricket Nation.
Sounds pretty great.
At Cricket, anyone can get a new phone when they switch.
Whoa.
With a high-quality camera, meaning more flattering selfies for all. And super fast 5G, so you can post them for all to see. Your friends, your family, your ex. Free phone! Free phone!
Okay, I'll switch.
Welcome to Cricket Nation.
Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. Must bring your number to Cricket on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax to its sale. Fees, terms, and other restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time and switch to the expensive shampoo with amino acids. Sure, you don't know what those are or why you need them, but it sounds very impressive. And if you switch and save hundreds, you can massage it into your scalp every day. Now, if only you can get people to lean toward your head to smell those aminos. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shampoo. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary. Progressive presents a testimonial of sorts.
Hey, slow down! Oh, yeah? Well, you drive like my grandma. She's a very attentive and courteous driver who wears a seatbelt and always uses her turn signals. She's also a talented painter and has very low cholesterol. Not that that has anything to do with her driving, just thought a more complete picture of who she is might be interesting. Anyway, have a nice day.
Safe driver? Get Snapshot from Progressive and get a personalized rate based on how you drive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents. Surcharge possible for unsafe driving.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Here's how to get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. Our US-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2025. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
Should elected officials be able to send out communications like mailers or billboards or commercials that promote themselves or something they do in their office just before an election or while they're running to be reelected? Should public funds even be used to pay for those materials? Those are questions on a new bill that Capitol Hill aims to answer. And we've got with us State Representative Jason Kyle from my part of the state, Rusty.
Yes,
from
he's
the Ogden
your neck
Valley.
of the woods, yeah.
He's going to talk us about this bill. It's called Elected Officials Publicity Amendments. And I don't even see a bill number on that. HB 551.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Kyle, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And tell our listeners, if you would, what this bill is about, what it intends to do.
Yeah, I mean, this bill, what it does is it makes it so that you can't campaign with taxpayer-funded or taxpayer funds, right? So we just want to make sure that people know that when we use their funds, we're using it for their good and not for our own to get us reelected. But it was actually a fairly difficult bill to draft because we also want to maintain the ability to get the word out about what we're doing, right? People want to know what we're doing. And so I think we tailored this in a way that set the right balance.
Okay, so if I read this right, the mark is 60 days before the a caucus, convention, or election. You would prohibit the public official from making an expenditure from public funds on a billboard or mass communication. So as an example, I'm running against Greg Skordas for mayor of Huntsville, and he's the current mayor, and a week before the ballots get there, he sends a flyer out saying, just a reminder, everybody, that Garbage Day is on Monday from your wonderful mayor, Greg Skordas, with his smiling face on it. Is that an okay example?
Exactly. That's a perfect example. So, and we don't want, on some things, I'm not going to name any examples, but, there have been cases of that. You're like, sending out a letter for something just like that and saying, and by the way, look at me, look at my face, look at my name. And the ad happens to be in my campaign colors, right? So I think that's inappropriate.
Yeah, Representative Kyle, I think this had to be a hard one to fashion for reasons that you've stated, and that is, at its core, you can't campaign with taxpayer funds. That's already clear. But then you get to the point that Rusty just talked about, although his example was a little more blatant, which is when does a communication become a campaign? And I think that sort of this whole 60 days before the election gives us a fairly bright line. I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but this, isn't that sort of where we are with this representative, that rather than sort of defend what constitutes campaigning and what doesn't, that just, hey, let's just figure out a bright line here?
It is, and to be clear, it doesn't mean that you can't send out messages, right? Like saying, hey, maybe the election's at this time, but you wouldn't put your name on it and your face, but you can still communicate, but you're not promoting a particular candidate.
Got it.
Or at least, elevating them to saying, hey, remember my name, right?
Yeah. So it looks like in the bill they define mass communication means any printed communications. This is printed communication that contains identical or substantially similar content and is mailed to more than 500 recipients. And so there are some bright lines there, which certainly makes sense. So does it?
Right. And we had that 500 cut off so that because we do need to let people know about some of the things that we're doing, and that's about the appropriate line.
Okay, and it looks like you also have some delineation of some items having to do with billboards, and this is pretty specific, right? To where, and I think you're being fair here, includes a photograph or image of the public official, contains a flag or a logo. Again, it's that mailer that Greg's sending out reminding everybody that Garbage Day is on Monday, but it's on a billboard. So.
Right. Yeah, it's the same concept for direct mail or for the billboards.
And I know we're not talking about any specific candidates or any specific campaigns, but certainly something happened, or there have been some concerns, maybe by voters, maybe by elected officials, as to why we need this. Is this something that you all on the Hill felt like we needed to just clean up a little bit?
I wouldn't say all of us on the Hill. This was something that I had constituents come to me on and ask if it was appropriate. And it didn't happen in our county, but it was something that they brought up, and they said, hey, what is the state doing about this? And so I thought we should address it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So has there been any pushback where there might be an unintended consequence of this, where we run afoul of, I don't know, free speech or something, some issue that you haven't thought about?
Yeah, this just became public a couple of days ago, so I've yet to receive any significant feedback. I'm interested to see how this goes once it gets into committee, and I talk with people, and I'm open to feedback because we want to get this right. But as far as public funds, I don't anticipate any First Amendment issues, or I think people expect that when that we don't use their funds to promote ourselves, and something I'd also want to be very careful. We see a lot of billboards out there for promoting candidates, and if that's paid for with your public funds, that's perfectly okay, and that's most of what you see.
When you said public funds, I think you meant personal funds, right?
campaign funds is
Yeah,
what I meant.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. Yeah. Campaign funds used for billboards are perfectly acceptable, and that's what they're for. But if they're public funds, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, because like if you're obviously a legislator, if you're running for re-election and you certainly put up a billboard, but it's what the money that's paying for it. It's from your campaign funds, which is proper. And Greg, I think the delineation here is it can't be public funds, right? So
yeah, Rusty, I was talking to you earlier about sort of nationally what we call frank mail.
Yeah, I think that's the term, frank mail.
Is that a similar?
Yeah, similar thing. Members of Congress, I think it applies to the Senate as well, but they can use that. I think it's called the franking privilege. I honestly don't know where that name came from, but you'll see those types of mailers come or communications come to where they can do that if it's about their official duties, and it's kind of along the same lines. I don't know though.
I think they do have a cutoff date as well before elections on when they can do that.
Yeah, so this would be in line with that of a cutoff. Maybe it's not 60 days or it's a similar time frame. But to answer your question, Greg, yes, that exists. But I think Representative Kyle's right. There is a cutoff. Yeah, a cutoff date.
Representative, what's the status of the bill right now? Where is it in terms of committee?
So it just came out of rules today, and it should be assigned to a committee. I don't exactly remember when that committee is. It just came out this morning, but I'll be running that shortly.
So just to give a little color to listeners, how does that work in the last roughly week of the session? The time's ticking, and you know better than anybody else, I'm sure. How does that work? Do you have to do anything different to get a bill through this late in the session?
You know, it makes it more difficult when it comes out this late, but it's kind of the Wild West out here in the last few days. So if you can get it into a committee, then you have a shot. But usually throughout the session, it needs to go through a committee in the House, and then go through the House, and then go through a committee in the Senate, and then go through the Senate, and then go to the governor's desk. But in the last 3 days, we've historically suspended the rules so that it only requires one committee. It still has to go through the House and the Senate, but if it's a Senate bill, in the last 3 days when the rules are suspended, it generally can just receive a Senate committee, and then the Senate, and then the House, and then in the House, when the rules are suspended, it just needs the House committee.
Representative Kyle, excuse me. Thank you for joining us, and good luck. We'll follow this bill closely. I think it's an interesting one. I think that Rusty and I both agree it probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's good policy, and thank you for letting me explain it.
You bet. When we come back after the break for the second hour, we'll dig into President Trump's meeting today with British Prime Minister and takeaways from the future in Ukraine, plus a new timeline on tariffs, on Canada and Mexico. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shaleos. KSL's top story this hour. A 12-year-old child that was hit by a car in front of Kearns Junior High has died from his injuries. Unified Police say the kid was crossing through a crosswalk on their bike when they were hit. The driver stayed on the scene and is cooperating with the investigation. Police in Clearfield are warning residents to keep their eyes peeled for a mountain lion in the area. The police department says they received a report of a mountain lion crossing the street at 9th South and 1000 West yesterday. They've informed the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, but they urge residents to keep their small pets close. KSL's top national story this hour from ABC News. At least 13 people were injured after a car rammed to a bus stop in northern Israel.
This happened mid-afternoon Israeli time at a junction in northern Israel. Israeli officials say a car rammed into a bus stop, critically injuring a 17-year-old girl and 9 other victims at the scene. Israeli police say they shot dead the attacker immediately after the attack. And the attacker, they say, was a 53-year-old Palestinian man from the town of Jenin.
That is ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge. Taking a look at your money at this moment. At the close, the Dow down 122 points to end at 43,312. Apparently, President Trump's tariffs is spooking investors. The NASDAQ ended down nearly 500 points, 2.5%. Still to come, we're enjoying some nice temperatures. How long will these warmer temperatures last? We'll check the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
It's first and goal at the 10-yard line with seconds left on the clock. Your running back is poised for a game-winning touchdown, but before you can make the snap, the opposing team just takes the ball and locks it inside a safe? Then they won't give you the combination unless you pay them $10,000? That's how ransomware works. And in 2021, 2 out of every 3 organizations fell victim to ransomware attacks. Protect your business with the Les Olson Security Suite from Les Olson IT. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Fall in love with your home comfort this season and save money too. A $29 heating system tune-up from Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric is the best way to ensure your HVAC system is operating at top efficiency. Boost your comfort and help prevent expensive breakdowns by calling the experts at Yes today for your $29 heating system tune-up. Trust the pros at Yes to keep your family comfortable. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Ricky?
We are back to a crash-free commute in Davis County from the earlier accident at Park Lane and Highway 89. Also looking at a nice and quiet drive on the Valley freeways. No problems there and good speeds. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
No problems in the weather, at least for the next few days. We're looking at highs in the 50s, up to 62 for a high on Sunday. Then on Monday, things change. Those temperatures drop big time, and then a 40% chance of a rain-snow mix. Right now it's 50 degrees, a lot of sunshine in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas as we start our second hour. Let's shift back to Washington, D.C. and talk about security and peace in Ukraine. It was the focus of a meeting today between President Trump and the British Prime Minister. It comes a day before Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is set to meet with President Trump to discuss a deal on rare earth minerals. Now, this joint press conference is still ongoing. We're actually watching it right now, but our crack producer has already got us some sound bites. That's how awesome he is. And so let's listen to what President Trump talked about a potential agreement for a ceasefire in Ukraine.
This will lay the groundwork for a long-term peace agreement that will return stability to Eastern Europe and hopefully ensure that such a terrible war will never happen on European soil or, for that matter, anywhere again. It's a horrible thing that's going on.
In the same press conference, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the relationship between the U.S. and the United Kingdom is strong.
But look, in a moment of real danger around the world, this relationship matters more than ever. We remain each other's first partner in defence, ready to come to the other's aid, to counter threats wherever and whenever they may arise.
You know, Greg, I'm smiling. I could listen to that accent all day long.
I know.
I don't know what
it's like
it is.
the old Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
It's just like, talk to me some more.
Yeah, exactly.
Just read a children's novel to me and I'll be happy.
You know, I'm fascinated with, I don't know if you've ever seen footage of how British Parliament works. Have you ever seen it where they have the back and forth?
Oh, yeah.
It is fascinating to watch. You've got to be good on your toes. In fact, here's a bit of Prime Minister Starmer. He's speaking to the British Parliament about Ukraine yesterday.
This week marks 3 years since Putin's barbaric invasion of Ukraine. The courage of the Ukrainians is inspiring, and across this House we stand with them for as long as it takes. Mr. Speaker, that's why we're increasing defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by April 2027, with an ambition to reach 3% in the next Parliament as economic and fiscal conditions allow.
See, and you heard the background, everyone's in there. That is so different than the United States Congress, where, I don't know if you've noticed, when they're speaking to the camera often on the floor, there's no one there. I mean, there's maybe a few people. Or you were literally talking to the wall and filming. It's still important, but it's not like everybody's standing around, like in the old days. But I had to go down that road because whenever I hear that accent, I just think of that. And this is an important subject. I don't mean to get off a serious note, but just when you heard him talking, that made me think about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting that Trump is in the United Kingdom talking about Ukraine, and I think you mentioned at the outset of this, Rusty, that the Ukrainian Prime Minister is actually coming to the United States next week.
It's tomorrow. And he's actually supposed to be there tomorrow.
You know, the back and forth that we're hearing between Trump and Putin, and Trump sort of being critical of Ukraine, and now saying maybe there's, like we talked about earlier with Trump, transactional. Maybe there's something in it for us if we're going to continue to fund Ukraine and help them with their war against Russia, and that is they've got a lot of precious metals. They've got a lot of rare earth metals. They've got a lot of things that maybe the United States could benefit from, and maybe Ukraine, according to Trump, should start paying us back.
Yeah, and that actually was a subject of a slight disagreement that we caught on a soundbite. While speaking to reporters together in the Oval Office, they had a bit of a disagreement about Ukraine funding. Let's listen.
The European nations said, they get their money back by giving money. We don't get the money back. Biden made a deal. He put in $350 billion. And I thought it was a very unfair situation.
We're not getting all of ours. I mean, quite a bit of ours was gifted.
All right, so he jumped in right there, just like at British Parliament. Oh, hold on, in rebutting. I don't know if that was something that the president was expecting. That was interesting to hear.
Yeah, why do you suppose that this specific matchup, United States and the UK, is significant right now as it relates to Ukraine funding? I mean, Is it that the United Kingdom is probably one of our stronger NATO allies?
I would assume so. I mean, if you think about the British military, they have a fairly strong military, right? And they've been a great ally to the United States, as we all know historically. So
they're a country that helps us with NATO by putting boots on the ground instead of just
typically, yes. Yeah. Like I think about Afghanistan and other places where we've been involved in Iraq. Typically, the British are right alongside of us.
Yeah.
So it seems natural.
So I mean, Trump's talking about how we can sort of resolve this conflict. Russia has taken huge parts of Ukraine. I see that they've got 63% of Ukrainian coal mines, half of their manganese, cesium, and tantalum, whatever that is. But they've seized a lot of mines. They've seized a lot of resources in Ukraine. And I think that Trump is looking at those also as something that is kind of a bargaining point. And how does Russia get out of this conflict with a win? And how does Ukraine get out of this with a win? And Trump trying to broker that, because he said, Rusty, when he was running, that he was going to end that war. And he's certainly done more than Biden did in several years. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Getting us closer to that. And he's got so many other things on his plate. It's hard to imagine him doing this. But he's seemingly wanting to do another promises kept as it relates to that war.
And I think President Trump gets a lot of flack for engaging even at all with Putin. But it just seems like his negotiation tactic is, and he's talked about this, I think, at length historically, of his willingness to reach out and talk to anyone. I mean, remember in his first term, he went and visited with Kim of North Korea.
Right.
That was groundbreaking.
Sure.
Right? That was just so new to everybody. And they're meeting and shaking hands. And it does not mean you agree with what they're doing, but that engagement, it seems to be his style. I think that's making a lot of people uncomfortable. In fact, he was asked at an earlier press conference about, does he trust Putin to keep his word? Let's say you do settle and you have territory, you draw lines, right? And they asked him, do you think Putin will keep his word? He said, I don't believe he's going to violate his word. I don't think he'll be back when we make a deal. I think the deal is going to hold. They're going to have security. But then he said again, it's trust and verify. Let's call it that. And I think we can both be that way. You have to verify because you never know what's going to happen. That was the quote that he gave. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with this level of engagement with Putin. And seen as sort of the crowding out, or I should say, setting aside of Ukraine and Zelensky. But maybe that's the means he's using to get to the end, I guess. And Zelensky will be there tomorrow.
And at the United Nations this week, there was a resolution condemning Russia for invading Ukraine. And something like 93 members of the UN voted to condemn Russia. Yeah. A very small handful voted against it. Now, there are 65 that abstained, including China.
Correct.
But in that small handful that refused to support it, United States, Russia, North Korea. I mean, it was the sort of the U.S. with the gang that we don't necessarily associate ourselves as lining up with. That was a surprise. That was a surprise vote for me.
That was a surprise to me as well. But not to be, too bitter about the UN. I think that resolution is barely worth the paper it's written on, right? Meaning it means absolutely nothing,
right?
When it's coming out of the UN from really end results, and I think that's what a lot of frustration people have with the UN and all. But this is going to be interesting to see how this goes. And as soon as tomorrow we have Zelensky at the White House, we're going to have tons more to talk about. So, what do you think? How do you think it ends up?
I do think that it's been helpful for the American public to see Trump and Putin talking. To think that this great enemy isn't out there. Now, to answer your question, Zelensky's coming to town next week. How do we broker this and keep our what seems to be a growing sense of camaraderie, or whatever you want to call it, between the United States and Russia, that I think a lot of the American public might feel some, relief hearing. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to go to war. We don't want to have conflict. And whether, Trump may extend that to China. But as it relates to Ukraine, I mean, bringing Zelensky to town next week, I think is a good step in that direction. Brokering with Russia, I think Trump's getting closer and closer. I don't know if he'll get the deal done, but it seems like that he's certainly working hard on that.
All right, we'll see. Coming up on Inside Sources, 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico are back on the table. The updated timeline and potential impacts next.
Transform your living space with Zerorez, where cleaner carpets mean a healthier home. Right now, get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for only $109. And if you mention KSL News Radio, enjoy a hallway clean for free. Zerorez uses patented technology that cleans without harsh chemicals, ensuring your carpets stay fresh and safe for kids and pets. Experience faster dry times, Your carpets will be ready in hours, not days. Plus, with the Zerorez Gotta Love It guarantee, if you're not satisfied, Zerorez will re-clean for free within 30 days. Spring is around the corner, making it the perfect time to tackle your cleaning. Did you know up to 40 pounds of debris can accumulate in your carpets annually? Refresh your home with Zerorez's Deep Clean, removing winter's grime and odors. Let Zerorez help you refresh your home. Call 866-ZEROREZ or visit Zerorez.com to schedule your appointment today. That's 866-ZEROREZ or Zerorez.com.
Hi, Susan. We haven't seen or heard from you.
Cold.
We would like to locate Joyce.
The mysteries that made podcast history
Cherie Warren disappeared.
are now together for free at KSLPodcasts.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, the host of Cold. Join me for Season 1, The Susan Powell Case Files, Season 2, Justice for Joyce, and Season 3, The Search for Cherie. Listen anytime for free at KSLPodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Kathy.
And Jason from Window World.
Jason, there's a window company giving huge discounts, saying it's the biggest sale ever.
And last month they were offering free labor. That just doesn't add up.
We don't play those games. At Window World, everyone gets the same low price every day.
No pressure, no games, and now we offer siding too.
Call Window World today, 801-281-8111 for 4 windows and a patio door for just $56.12.
And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney. Someone asked me the other day, do you know how many devices the average home has connected to their Wi-Fi network? It's way more than I thought. I actually went home and counted my connected devices, more than a dozen, all to keep me connected to the good stuff, streaming, my gaming, interneting, you name it. Xfinity knows the number of connected devices you have is growing by the year. That's why they engineered their gateways to handle hundreds of connected devices. Hundreds, for real. Now through March 18th, get Xfinity Gig Internet for $25 a month for 1 year with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add an unlimited mobile line, and ask how to get an eligible free 5G phone with trade-in. Make sure your home Wi-Fi can handle everything you throw at it and then some. Visit Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store to switch today. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account, taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Xfinity Internet required. Reduced mobile speeds after use of monthly data included with your data option. Data thresholds and actual internet speeds vary.
The system is rigged against you. There's a lot of money to be made keeping you overweight and unhealthy.
At Soda Weight Loss, we have one goal, and that's to help you let go of the weight for good, without shots, without drugs, without hunger.
So I lost 25 pounds. I was never hungry. It was very, very easy. I couldn't believe how fast the weight came off.
With Soda Weight Loss, you get real results that will last your whole life.
I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks. Feels great. I fit into my clothes again.
Soda Weight Loss is the #1 weight loss center in America for client satisfaction and results, and we have the proof at sodaweightloss.com.
Right now, for a limited time, 2 people can start with soda for the price of 1. For new clients only.
Double the reward, double the motivation, half the cost.
Get healthy. Beat the system. Visit sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda Weight Loss is, say it with me, state of the art.
Discover the thrill of adventure at the Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo. Dive into the latest gear, meet industry experts, and explore your passion for the great outdoors. Enthusiasts, friends, and families will learn what's new and what's cool, as well as the chance to win over $40,000 in door prizes and giveaways. Mark your calendars for the 10th annual Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo, coming to the Mountain America Expo Center February 28th through March 1st. For tickets and information, visit slorex.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico will go into effect next Tuesday. Rusty, I said oops earlier when I mentioned tariffs, just because I don't like.
Okay, that's what you meant.
I didn't mean oops. I read it wrong. I just meant oops.
Okay.
We don't want to go down that road again. But you'll recall that the president delayed tariffs for 1 month. I thought it was longer than that. But after Canadian and Mexican leaders said they would do more to secure their borders with the United States, but that month is up. It looks like March 4th. He said they haven't done enough quickly enough, so in his mind, the tariffs are back on.
You know, I wondered about this. When they said 30 days which wasn't long ago. Obviously, we're already talking about it again. I wondered if this would just go to the back of everybody's mind and then come back to bite them, and it seems like it has. And it was, I think, a good illustration of the leverage that President Trump tries to use. Because if you remember, he said, all right, we're going to pause this for 30 days. He didn't say they're going away. Right. That's 30 days, and I'll see if I like what you're doing. And so at this point, it gives them a chance to still have leverage of, well, what you've done isn't enough, and maybe it is. But I think it's a rather smart negotiation strategy and a way to keep their feet to the fire. If you recall, Mexico, what they pledged to do was send approximately, I think it was 10,000 National Guard soldiers to the border to try to mitigate what's going on. And according to news reports as recent as today, the press has viewed them. Those soldiers are there. They see a lot of them standing at the base of the border barrier, moving around. The fencing, they're checking vehicles, they're doing all the types of things that you would assume they would do on their side of the border. I think the open question is it effective? According to most reports, there were approximately 9,600 kilograms brought through the border of fentanyl last year.
Through the south border.
The south border.
The border with Mexico,
yeah,
right.
Hardly any through the Canadian border. I mean, there were some. According to this report, 19 kilograms. I'm not even sure how much that is, but compared to 9,600 kilograms.
It'd fit in your trunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But he's punishing both countries equally.
He is, yeah. And I think that's another method of his leverage there. And according to reports today, what's really bothering him now is, no, you've got to really stop this fentanyl from coming in. That's going to be tough. I mean, I'm sure with your work, in legal matters and with law enforcement and all, most of this fentanyl, as far as I know, is trafficked in hidden places, right? So if you're looking at the vehicle, that's great, but it might be hidden in the tires, it might be hidden in the bumper, it might be, it's not easy to find this stuff. And an open question, I guess, is how effective are these efforts?
Yeah, and you've got to stop the flow. It's really weird, Rusty. I practiced law since 1982, and you sort of go through these cycles of these drugs that are suddenly. I remember like 20 years ago we had meth labs, and we had to do something about the meth thing, and we were passing all these laws on meth. Well, opioids have slowly and maybe gradually just taken over everything, and fentanyl is the opioid that is the most prevalent. Apparently it's the most easy to produce. It's also incredibly powerful, so you can cut it. I mean, if you have oxy and you're distributing it sort of as it's made, but if you have fentanyl, you can get a small amount of fentanyl to have the same potency as a large amount of your oxycodones and drugs like that. So in that respect, it's a drug that's worth a ton of money. There's a lot to be made there because it's so powerful, and it can be cut up so easily into something that you can you buy a handful and sell a carload. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can understand the fentanyl problem in this country has gotten completely out of hand, and Trump wanting to do something about it. Closing the borders, at least the southern border, seems to make sense. What did you say? 9,600 kilograms last year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Canadian border, 19 kilograms. I mean, that's like less than 1% of that same number.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it makes the same sense.
Well, now you early mentioned your comments about tariffs and not liking them, and I get your point. Let's talk about that for a minute. If I think about tariffs, you could make a case where this increased costs for Americans. No one wants that in the environment we're in, or in any environment. The question is, and I think there's various sets of data that could show this either way in the past, as to that, for instance, in the first Trump administration, the tariffs that he put on China, did that raise prices on Americans? There is some data that shows that those tariffs were absorbed by the senders of the goods, meaning
by China.
A Chinese company just taking the hit in their profits. If that comes to the border and you pay a tariff, you might not be able to pass that along to consumers, because then you become price and competitive possibly, and you just have to eat it out of your profits. And maybe that's more the case versus just saying, okay, well, if it's 10% tariff, it gets to the border, it's 10% more expensive for Americans. That is not necessarily true. However, theoretically, it can happen. I think time will tell as to how it goes. But there's so many moving parts, it's going to be hard to tell. But he absolutely loves tariffs, and I don't. And it sounds like you don't either.
Yeah, I think there's already a 10% tariff on Chinese goods. That's about to double. He's going to add an additional 10% to China. It seems to me, Rusty, that what happens is that, if you put 25% tariffs on our product, we're going to put 25% on yours, just across the board.
Yeah.
So all these other countries are doing the same thing. I think that the United States has the leverage with every one of them, because we import so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're at a huge deficit in terms of our import-export. So we're a big buyer, and so the tariffs hurt the other countries because they're bringing more in than they're buying from us.
Yeah,
and I think that's his economic logic behind this.
Yeah, and on the flip side, we depend on them, unfortunately, for a lot of things.
Sure we do.
And I'm not sure. I'd love to see the actual numbers, but one item that they always harp about is, our reliance on semiconductors from Taiwan. It's often reports are talking about just one single company, Taiwan Semiconductor, that manufactures, I don't know what percent, some massive percentage of all the semiconductor materials that we need. And if they ever took out Taiwan or cut that off, we would be in a world of hurt. There are bad consequences that can happen if this thing just ratchets up. But in the past, according to data that I've looked at, it's sort of a mix of good and bad, and it's not end of the world type of stuff. But this is worrisome, right? As you just keep ratcheting up, who blinks first is the question, and I don't think we know the answer to that.
And the tariffs are imposed theoretically in response to the drug inflow into this country, like saying to these countries, look, unless you stop that. And we talked about Mexico and Canada, but what Trump said was a large percent of this fentanyl is actually supplied by China. So it's coming from Canada and from Mexico, but ultimately the source is China. So because I was trying to figure out why China is involved in this, because we don't share a border, obviously, but that's where the manufacturing is taking place. And I've seen that in my own practice. Yeah. People go on the dark web, and you can buy fentanyl. At least back in the day, not that long ago, you could buy fentanyl from China just by clicking a button and having it delivered, literally, and on the dark web. And of course, it wasn't labeled fentanyl; it was labeled, dog food or whatever it was. But it was crazy how easy it was to obtain that from China.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how these other countries react, because there's an additional reciprocal tariff that he's talked about coming on April 2nd. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but where he said, okay, if they have a tariff on us, we're going to put a tariff on you on April 2nd. I don't know how many countries that involves, but it's referred to as the reciprocal tariff. And that they're, according to the administration, coming on April 2nd. So that's another one, another set that's going to come. Just seems like that's all he likes to talk about is tariffs.
So a month ago, we got to this same point. Tariffs, we got right there. Trump had meetings with the leaders of Mexico, the leaders of Canada, and decided, okay, we're going to put this on hold for a month. Don't you suppose those same leaders, Rusty, are going to say, Trump, what are you doing next Thursday? Can we come? I mean, people, and good for him for keeping their feet to the fire. But I kind of get the sense that something's going to be brokered between now and next Tuesday, and maybe these tariffs don't go into place.
Well, I always like to dumb things down to a movie quote, as you know. And I don't know if you remember the movie Hunt for Red October.
Yes.
Where there's a point where the two submarines are headed right for each other. And the one gentleman looks to the other. He's quite nervous that they're going to run into each other. And the captain, who's nice and calm, says, the hardest part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. Right,
yeah.
And so that's
right.
Who's gonna flinch first? Because these are obviously two submarines, so to speak, headed to each other, and we'll see what happens.
And nobody wants the collision.
Nope.
Next up on Inside Sources, in a new memo, the Trump administration is warning federal agencies to prepare for mass layoffs. We'll discuss that after these.
Good afternoon, 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top local story this hour. A teenager in West Jordan's in critical condition after being shot late last night.
West Jordan police officers were dispatched to the area of 3400 West and 6600 South on reports of a shooting. When our officers arrived, they located 3 individuals, one of whom was a 15-year-old male who had been shot.
Sergeant Andrew Hercules says 2 other males were with him, including an 18-year-old arrested on drug and weapons charges. Neither of them was the shooter. Police are asking anyone around 48th West and 66th South to check your door cameras for footage at around 11:20 last night. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. In the Oval Office, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that he wants to help the U.S. end the war in Ukraine. At their joint news conference, President Trump said he expects that Vladimir Putin will be a man of his word.
I think he'll keep his word. I think I've spoken to him. I've known him for a long time now. I've known him. We had to go through the Russian hoax together. That was not a good thing. It's not fair.
President Trump said the presence of American workers in Ukraine will act as a deterrent against Russia. Your money at this moment on Wall Street. The Dow is down 121 points. Another mixed market on Wall Street today. Coming up, it's just going to get warmer and warmer in the days ahead. Stay with us. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
I'm Rod with the Save Right team at Realty Path. I also own Save Right Mortgage. When building this new and disruptive business model, my attorney said, quote, "You'll rock the boat and make your competitors mad. There's no way they can compete with the value Save Right offers home buyers." She's right. Other real estate agents and mortgage lenders can't compete with Save Right. However, Utah home buyers love Save Right. Save Right home buyers get bankbuster loans with below market interest rates. Save Right clients buy bigger, nicer homes. Their monthly payments are hundreds less. Bankbuster loans save home buyers hundreds of thousands in interest. Start with a rate in the 2s. Call 801-APPROVE or visit SaveRight.com. Start with a rate in the 2s. Call 801-APPROVE or visit SaveRight.com.
Progressive's Auto Quote Explorer lets you easily compare direct rates from different insurance companies, so you can be confident you're getting the right one, even if it's not with Progressive. Way more confident than you were when you tried online gaming. Who knew 12-year-old boys could be so mean? And where did they learn to swear like that? 2 hours of losing to these underage trash talkers, and you're starting to question if maybe you really should stick to pickleball and other boomer stuff. So use Progressive's Auto Quote Explorer and be confident you're getting insurance that's right for you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Here's how to get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. Our US-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
Are you and your credit card ready for some peace and quiet? Experience the relief of a low rate with the Mountain America credit card. With a 3% cash bonus on balance transfers, it's more relaxing than ever. Open a Mountain America credit card today for your limited time bonus. Details at macu.com/transfer. Loans on approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio are brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a crash with injuries in Murray, northbound I-15, just after the I-215 junction and before 53rd South. Now, a lot more emergency crews are arriving on the scene, and the crash does seem to involve multiple vehicles, one of which may have flipped and is sitting on its top. 2 left lanes of traffic are already blocked and we're starting to see stop and go and slow and go delays setting in past Midvale. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL weather forecast down to 30 overnight, 55 degrees tomorrow, and by Sunday, expect sunshine and 62. Right now it's 50 degrees with sunshine. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Breaking news here at KSL News Radio. I'm News Director Becky Bruce. A flight from Salt Lake City to Honolulu is safely back on the ground. That's important to note here in Utah after it suffered an engine failure just about 10 minutes after takeoff. The fire department tells us they were called shortly after that flight was diverted to be on alert just in case. But the Delta flight was able to land safely shortly after that. Again, we are not aware of any injuries or any problems beyond this engine failure that forced them to come back to Salt Lake City and land the plane. Flight logs from FlightAware.org show that the aircraft circled the airport for some time before landing. We'll bring you more details as soon as we have them coming up on Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Well, we just avoided what would have been the day's biggest story. It sounds like that was a good ending to a bad situation. And
thank goodness.
And thank goodness for the people that were on the ground and in the air that saved that. Let's go back to what we're talking about here today, and that is large-scale federal layoffs. Thousands of probationary federal workers have already been let go, but the cuts aren't over yet. In a new memo to government agencies, President Trump tells those agencies to prepare for and plan for additional mass layoffs, saying the American people registered their verdict on the, quote, bloated, corrupt federal bureaucracy on November 5th, 2024. Election day, of course. By voting for President Trump, he's going to fulfill his promise by sweeping reforms to the federal government. That's what we're hearing, and that's another one of those promises made, promises kept. Now, Rusty, I would say this in terms of federal workers. Probationary workers are, and I use this phrase loosely, but sort of the low-hanging fruit. That is to say, they are the ones that are easy to terminate because as probationary workers, they don't have the same rights, they don't have the same benefits, they don't have the same appeal rights if they're terminated. Basically, when you're a probationary employee, they can let you go because your hair's too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. Once a worker is established, they have some level of job protection, and then it becomes a little more difficult.
Well, it's like a temp, right? You think
Absolutely,
of a temp
yes.
agency, that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
The quote you read, I wondered if it came from an actual memorandum from the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. So that's headed now. He was confirmed. Russell Vaught as the director of OMB, and he actually put out a memo talking about this very thing. He did make a point in his first sentence. The federal government, along the lines of the quote you read earlier, the federal government is costly, inefficient, and deeply in debt. At the same time, it is not producing results for the American public. And then he goes on to talk about a few other things. But most of this memo then gets into specifics about what they want these agencies to do, where they want them to look at better serving the people, increasing productivity and all. And then they actually line out some tools that they can use. And I was curious to get your thoughts on this, Greg, what you think. Some of them, they sound fairly reasonable, but this is some of the things they could do. Number one, continuing to comply with the hiring freeze. They had a hiring freeze. Obviously, to continue to comply with that. Establishing internal processes that ensure agency leadership has visibility or direct sign-off on all potential job offers, right? So that's still on expanding their headcount. Then eliminate non-statutorily mandated functions through reductions in force. That means if there's not a statute saying, hey, you have to have these workers, maybe look at doing a reduction in force. And then here's some ones that seem common sense. Remove underperforming employees or ones that are engaged in misconduct. Reduce headcount through attrition. And then a few other things about negotiating contracts with labor unions and things like that. But those are the types of things that they're pushing down to these agencies to say, hey, here are some suggestions on how you'd go about doing this.
Yeah, when I heard about that the government was going to be cut back in the way that it was talked about, I was thinking the easy way to do that was some of these things that you just mentioned. One is what we started this with. Okay, you've got the probationary employees. Let's let them go. That's a small group, and then you impose what's called a hiring freeze. So no more people coming in, and then you said attrition. People are retiring. They're getting better jobs. They're getting other jobs. They're doing whatever. That just wasn't fast enough, apparently, because those are three ways that would be fairly easy and you wouldn't hurt anyone. I mean, the probationary employees, obviously it hurts a lot, but people who are working for the government and have been working for some time and are expecting that wage, suddenly being told, sorry, you're 20 years into this job, we're going to let you go now. That's a little more difficult. And you and I probably, at least I do, know government employees who have been hit hard by this, and it is a hard hit.
Yeah, it's real, and we don't want to belittle that at all. It is real for a lot of people. However, this was something that they campaigned on, right?
Sure.
This shouldn't be a surprise, and as this process unfolds, what this memo actually does that I was referring to is it reminds everyone, at least within the government, that they need to submit these plans up top to OMB no later than March 13th. So what is that? Roughly 2 weeks from tomorrow or so of having that plan in place. And then obviously that'll work its way up. We know that the government certainly doesn't move very quickly. But then after that, they'll then go through approvals and all of that, where they do a second phase through mid-April, April 14th, and so on and so forth. So this, I think the headlines are correct that they should be preparing for significant layoffs as they've termed them.
Yeah, significant. Think about this. The Environmental Protection Agency alone could reduce its staff by 65%. 2/3 of the people working for the Environmental Protection Agency could lose their job as a result of this Trump mandate. Yeah, that's a lot of unemployed people.
It is. There are a lot of concerns that what kind of blowback or pushback this will create, not only for the administration but just also policymakers in general. Obviously, resistance is expected. You have labor unions, Democratic state leaders, and other organizations that are trying to slow this process with litigation. You might have some Republicans and maybe some swing districts that are also more concerned about what is seen as a slash and burn strategy. However, and we'll go through in the next segment a very interesting poll, as you mentioned earlier, on how is all of this landing, all these different policies landing with the American people as far as polling goes on the Trump administration. And so far, it's been decently popular. I think where it's going to hit home is obviously people you don't want that to happen to those that you know and care about, but also if it creates knock-on effects, right? Where there's a significant reduction in, park personnel. I'm making a story up, let's say in Zion's Park, and people can't get in and it's too crowded, and you have dysfunction that then gets amplified, on the news or social media. I think that could blow back pretty quickly, and they need to be careful about that.
Yeah. And I think you said during one of the breaks, I'm starting to sound like I sort of like what Trump's doing in some respects.
Oh, don't do that.
I don't, but I don't mean to sound that way. But I would also say this: some of these agencies are victims of their own foolishness and their own. It got to I worked for the government before, and I know that sometimes you're in a position where you have a certain amount of funding coming in, and you could work for far less than that, but if you do, then the next year you're going to get far less.
Yeah,
so
you
spend it all,
yeah.
right? Which is nuts.
Yeah.
And I think some of these agencies got too big. Now, 65% too big, the Environmental Protection Agency, I don't know. But it and the American public's thinking, they hear these stories about, the Air Force spending X number of dollars for, toilet seats or something like that, and going, what are we doing wrong? Why are these agencies going so far out of control? And maybe we just need to reel them in a little bit. I mean, I think we're reeling them in a little bit too much. That's just me. But I think there were easier ways to do it through, just letting attrition and getting some people, no more hiring freeze, getting rid of any more hiring, and sort of the probationary employees was good. But boy, they're going much, much deeper than that. These cuts are really going to hurt some people, and they already have.
Yeah, sledgehammer approach, I think, for now. I think the gears of government will slow it down. It will be hopefully more of a scalpel approach as time goes on, but they'll have to be careful about it.
Yeah, and we may see, like you say, I mean, if people are going down to Zion's Park and they can't use the restrooms because nobody's cleaning them, or nobody's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's
some
bad
things that
can
might happen,
yeah.
And people might go, okay, Trump, enough's enough. Let's at least have some things going. In our final segment on today's Inside Sources, we'll discuss what you just mentioned, Rusty, some new polling showing that if Americans are still in favor of Donald Trump's recent actions, I'm not, but let's see what America has to say. Stay with us.
At JCW's, we think tipping might be getting a little out of hand. Like when you're asked to tip at the register before you've even been served. Or when you're at the yogurt shop and find yourself serving yourself. And don't even get us started on frosted tips making a comeback. That's why at JCW's, when you pay for a 3rd-pound ranch bacon cheeseburger, that's what you pay. And no one at the register is going to stare longingly at you while you awkwardly maneuver through the tip screen for food you don't even have yet. Honestly, we're just happy to see you at any of our 5 locations in Provo, South Jordan, Lehigh, Harriman, and American Fork. So come on in and enjoy some quality time and great food with family and friends. And we promise, we won't be pushing you for a tip.
Hey, this is Chris with JCW's, and we just want to say thank you, and especially to our loyal customers. We want you to know that at JCW's, your business is all the tip we need. JCW's, quality and a lot of it.
Join KSL News Radio and the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1 at Fat Cats in Bluffdale, 13901 South Redwood Road, fatcatsfun.com.
Millions of Americans take medicine like Ozempic and Zepbound. Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
Something amazing is happening when power outages strike. Teams are powering through them. That's because CDW Solutions architects are building more resilient IT and electrical infrastructures with Schneider Electric. With EcoCare remote monitoring services and 24/7 support, your organization can do more than keep the lights on. Schneider Electric and CDW make amazing happen. Learn more at cdw.com/Schneider Electric.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Well, if you're sitting in delays on northbound I-15, it's due to a crash in Murray that's been blocking 2 left lanes of traffic after I-215, the south interchange. They're trying to get most of it moved over to the left shoulder. However, right now, I-15 seeing slow and go and stop and go speeds from 90th South up to 53rd South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Here's how to get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. Our US-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted it close to town, with a picture window overlooking a yard. And you found it. Now, when you sit down to dinner, you've got front row seats too. Your neighbor's daily pickleball game. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services. Sometimes when our furnace stops working, it's something simple we can fix ourselves, if we only knew how. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the next time your furnace stops working, before you call a company out to fix it, try this first. Go shut the furnace down and make sure your air filter is clean. Go around the house and make sure the vents are open and there's nothing blocking the return air. If it's been a while since you've changed the batteries in your thermostat, go ahead and do that too. Then go turn the furnace back on, and if it stays on, you're probably good. If it stops working again, you're probably going to want a technician to check it out. If you don't know one, Any Hour Services has a special offer for any homeowners listening. One of our HVAC technicians will diagnose and troubleshoot your furnace for only $29. Then they'll explain what they found and present you with repair options. And don't worry, our technicians service all brands. Call Any Hour Services and let them know you heard about this $29 troubleshooting special on the radio. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to our last segment on Inside Sources today. I've been your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. Greg, we've teed this up in a few earlier segments. We wanted to talk about some new polling that gives us a look at how Americans are feeling just a month over into the new administration's term for President Trump. It's a Harvard, Capps, and Harris poll that was released this week. It shows the direction in a few general areas as well as some specifics, and I found it very interesting. I thought it'd be fun for us to talk about that. And Greg, as we get into it, one slide in the slide deck that comes with the poll I thought was fairly interesting. They asked for support or opposition for all, well, not all, but many of the different policies that like we've talked about on this show, Greg, often, and whether they support or oppose those. And a surprisingly high number of them that I thought, and even some of these that are viewed as somewhat controversial, are quite strongly supported.
I was surprised at that too. I because we've been talking for 2 hours here about some of the sort of the questionable things that are going on in the administration, what's happening right now. But it seems like the American public is thinking, you know what, that's what we put you in office to do.
Yeah, I mean the one at the top, the most popular, 81% support. Now this is a poll of over 2,400 registered voters. 81% support deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes. The second lowest, 76%, undertaking a full-scale effort to find and eliminate fraud and waste in government expenditures. I don't know, maybe that's the DOGE question there.
Right.
Very popular. Also closing the border with added security and policies that discourage illegal crossings, 76%. Then it goes down from there. The one that I also don't see just any point behind it, the least popular, only 39% favorability on renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I'm in that group that doesn't like that. You know, I was looking at one of these, and it says 38% of Americans say the economy's on the right track. That seems like a bad number, but it's 10% above where it was before.
Yeah, 10 points higher.
I mean that was 10 points higher, right? I mean, it was. People were so upset at Biden. People were so upset at what was happening with the economy at the time that I suppose, Rusty, Trump couldn't have done much worse. So the fact that 10% Americans now, additional 10% think the country's on the right track is a good sign, I think, for the administration and must give him some I don't know, impetus to continue what he's doing.
You know, then this poll was taken just a week ago, February 19th to the 20th. So this is pretty recent. Trump's approval rating sits at 52%. Still quite high and higher than he historically was, I think, in his entire first term. Just over half Americans think Trump is outperforming Biden on key issues. And as we mentioned, the top issues, you know, inflation and immigration are big. They are split about how Trump is performing relative to expectations, though a majority say he's doing better than Joe Biden.
Can't do worse. That's I think. I don't know, and I was a fan of Biden. I still am, but I think the American public was not, and it was like there's no way anybody could do worse than Biden, and which is I think why Kamala Harris didn't do very well because she was Biden too.
Yeah, and a lot of the knee-jerk reaction you see to an opposing party has been right front and center. According to this poll, 2/3 of voters, that's quite a high number, believe Democrats should wait and see what Trump is doing before opposing. Saying Democrats should join the mission to cut government and waste too. That's actually a bipartisan, popular idea of joining to cut government waste.
Yeah, and I think that what's happening is that we're seeing a lot of voters are thinking Democrats are just fighting every single thing Trump's doing, and what that tells me is 2/3 of the people say, you know what, Democrats, at least give him a chance. Mm-hmm. Let's just see what he's doing before you just oppose everything, and let's give him that opportunity to see what he can do to cut waste instead of just fighting everything. And that's pretty telling. That's a very telling number, 2/3.
So let me ask you this: as a Democrat, when would the Democrat Party change their message? Do you think, or do you think you will?
No, I don't think they will.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
I don't think they will. I mean, because I think the Democrats are more likely to say, "I told you so," in a month or a year from now when things get.
I can see your point. Yeah.
I think the Democrats might say, look, we fought these things. We fought some of these cuts. The American public thought they were a good idea, but look at what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Democrats are leaning on.
Got it. Okay, so 2 and 3 voters say the federal government's debt is unsustainable, and over 4 and 5 say they should work to balance the budget. So that actually is coming to the forefront very quickly. We saw that budget measure, as we talked about on the show just in recent days, was actually passed in the House. They got to reconcile it with the Senate. And go forward with a government funding bill by, I think it's March 14th, in 2 weeks. quickly. But that's a very popular thing, according to this poll.
I'm actually surprised that 2/3, to me, 2/3 seems like a low number to say the government debt is unsustainable. I mean, a third of the people think it is sustainable. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's, or 25 or 20% of the public thinks that that we shouldn't balance the budget. To me, those seem like they should be higher numbers, but they're all still very in favor of what's going on with the administration.
Yeah, we talked about tariffs earlier. 3 in 5 voters say tariffs will raise prices of everyday goods. They're split on how tariffs of imported goods will impact U.S. jobs. And a slim majority of voters say tariffs will help get concessions from other countries. And it's about split 50-50 on whether, as an example, steel and aluminum tariffs will harm rather than help. So it looks like the tariff issue is kind of down the middle.
Yeah.
There. Another area that's been quite controversial, but according to this poll, shouldn't be, more than 75% of American voters support Israel over Hamas and agree that Hamas must release all hostages. So that's a 75-25 issue.
I think it drives Americans nuts when we see that Hamas has released 25 hostages and Israel has released 1,500 prisoners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not apples to apples.
I think that, and the Israelis must be going through the roof, but they've got to get their hostages back. But to me, that raises some concerns, and I think a lot of people are upset at the way that's been handled, and that doesn't go well for Hamas when we talk about public opinion and how they're being perceived.
Yeah, so 2/3 of voters have heard of Trump's proposal to take over Gaza, but only a small majority say he's only saying that for leverage in negotiations, meaning that it's likely many view that as not a realistic item.
He's going to make it the next Honolulu. I mean, he's going to make the Gaza Strip, what he called it, I don't know.
The Riviera.
Yeah, the Riviera of the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be great.
And then a strong majority say the U.S. taking over Gaza would be a bad idea. And that's a road.
No, that's a death trap. I mean, who wants to take that over? I mean, that's risky. But I do believe with what you said, a number of people who thought that Trump was mostly saying this just to get everybody's attention. It's working, and he's using it for leverage, like people think, and it seems to be working in some respects.
Yeah. Now we talked about Ukraine earlier as well, and the developments today. According to this poll, most voters want Ukraine to negotiate a settlement with Russia, and 3 in 5 favor Trump announcing direct U.S.-Russia negotiations. So we talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. So 3 out of 5, what is that, 60%, saying that they are okay with Trump reaching directly out to Russia for negotiations. That surprises me.
I think for the reasons we talked about.
Yeah.
We don't want another Cold War. You know, our young people don't want another U.S.-Russia. You know, where are we? Who's going to raise the bar here? Let's talk and let's negotiate. And let's face it, Putin and Trump get along better than Putin and Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, no question. Trump knows how to negotiate
yeah.
with other foreign leaders, I think.
So President Trump has taken some flack on asking for some things in return. Precious minerals, other items coming out as sort of a return on the investment that the Americans have made. But according to this, a majority, which just means obviously a little bit over 50% of voters, think that the U.S. security guarantee should be contingent on Ukraine sharing revenue from rare earth minerals. So that's actually above a 50% issue, which surprises me.
And we talked about that earlier. I mean, I think that if you look at the amount of aid the United States, NATO, and let's face it, the United States is probably 90% of NATO aid, has given to Ukraine, maybe if Ukraine can give something back and is willing to give something back, and Trump's willing to sort of put that on the table, not a bad idea.
So it sounds like, if I heard you correctly, you think Democrats hold out and wait to have the chance to say, we told you so on any of these issues, meaning as far as messaging goes.
I do, and I think some of the cabinet appointments, I think some of the cutbacks that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours are going to come back and bite the administration, and the Democrats don't want to be part of that and want to be able to say, we voted against that, and look at what happened.
All right, thanks for being with us today on Inside Sources. Join Leah Murray and Marty Carpenter tomorrow as they finish off the week and the month with more political discussion and analysis. Next up, Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. Right now in Salt Lake City, it's 50 degrees. KSL's top story this hour, developing news. Some pensive moments in the skies over Salt Lake City this afternoon. A Delta jetliner bound for Honolulu suffered engine failure shortly after takeoff. The plane had to turn around and make its way back to Salt Lake City Airport. The fire department was put on alert just to be safe. The twin-engine Boeing 767 landed without incident. It's now on the ground, safe in Salt Lake City. Passengers who thought they'd be in Honolulu tonight won't be. We're hoping to get more information about the incident. Stay with us here at KSL News Radio. A 12-year-old boy has died just hours after police say the junior high school student was hit by an SUV while riding his bike in a crosswalk. It happened right outside Kearns Junior High this morning. KSL News Radio's Verl Johansson has details.
Unified Police Sergeant Amy Ray says the child was riding a bike across 4140 West at Sam's Boulevard when they were hit by a Chevy Tahoe.
We did have some people who were witnesses stay on scene and are helping with the investigation, as well as the driver of that vehicle.
Ray says there wasn't a crossing guard at the intersection, but there were flashing lights. She says it's important drivers and pedestrians are more cautious when they approach crosswalks, especially during school hours.
Look left, look right, look left again before you're entering your crosswalk. Just because you're at a crosswalk doesn't mean that people are necessarily paying attention.
Verl Johansson, KSL News Radio.
Police tell us the 12-year-old who died has been identified as Adam Muhammad, and they confirm he was a student at Kearns Junior High. A teacher from Pleasant Grove Junior High has been arrested, accused of raping a student at the school. KSL News Radio's Heather Peterson is live with details. Heather?
Jeff, the probable cause statement said police got wind of this after the victim told her friend she had a relationship with 29-year-old history teacher Keaton Tanner when she was 12 or 13. There's no mention of how long ago this was, but the victim told her friend the relationship ended after an incident where he got rough with her. The friend and the victim then reportedly confronted Tanner and recorded him saying that he would give them $500, but they say they didn't take the bribe. The documents went on to say Tanner had been warned before by school administration not to have that student alone in his classroom. Rich Stowell with the Alpine School District says the teacher has since been placed on administrative leave.
All district employees undergo a criminal background check prior to beginning employment. And when we learn of employee conduct that may violate the trust patrons have placed in us, we take appropriate action to protect students.
Stowell says the district is cooperating with the investigation. Reporting live, Heather Peterson, KSL News Radio.
Ukraine and the threat of tariffs. Among those topics, President Trump and the leader of the UK spoke about them. Maria Chaleos is live at the KSL National News Desk.
Jeff, following the meeting, President Care or Medicaid?
If Elon Musk and House Republicans are interested in identifying